Hi, my name is Terry Lynch. I'm the CEO of Polymetallic Mines. Our major project is NISK. It's in Quebec. We're developing probably one of the highest grade polymetallic discoveries in the world. And that's us.
That is you. Is that it?
That's it.
I want more, Terry. We're going to find out why.
We're going to dig in.
You're going to give us more.
Sure.
Today. Okay, we're obviously here at Beaver Creek. Lots of meetings from you guys. I remember this time last year, everyone was desperate to
find
catch your attention.
Yeah.
How do you review the last 12 months?
Well, pretty spectacular, right? I mean, we were top performing mine stock in Canada, so that was fantastic. We tripled from last year to here, so that's all good. But it's like, what have you done for me lately, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I think the big thing for us is that we raised a sufficient amount of capital that we can actually do things right.
Yeah.
And so that's like doing things where you do the proper research and then do the proper technologies to enhance your drilling programs. So,
right.
And then the other thing so we've done that, and we're about to reap the benefits of that approach. And then the other thing that we realized as we were doing it was we didn't have enough land. We realized that, wow, this is not just going to be about NISK and Lion. Sudbury has 33 mines. This year is going to have a lot of mines. So we thought we were under land. And so after we raised the money, the Trump tariff thing had and sort of rocked the markets. And so we thought, okay, well, it's not a good market to really be pushing IR a lot. Yeah. Let's sort of let the market go where it goes. And let's focus on the long term of creating value. And then let's use this downdraft as a mechanism to maybe add the land that we want. And so we did, and we were able to make, I think, a fair deal, but a great deal for us, from a land package perspective, with acquiring those land claims from Lift, 350, 60% increase in land. So that's great. And we felt like there's a recipe up there for success based upon what we've been doing, and it's like there's a geophysical component to it, there's a geological component to it, there's a geochemical component to it, and you need to really have all three. And so we sort of know what we're looking for, and we identified 8 sort of primary targets. So now we own 7. So we're locked in, and so now we had hoped actually to have assays by now, but the assay guys are just jammed, and we were going to go with a couple of holes, but then 4 hit last week or yesterday. So we thought, hey, better to give a comprehensive first batch. Yeah. So that'll come out next week sometime. And that'll be the first of the 20,000 meters we've done. We'll probably get to maybe 24,000 drilled by September 15th. We've got 4 rigs running now, a 5th coming this week, I think. And the 6th will be added after October. So we're all about the drilling now and growing the resource, because now it's like show me time. We have to show that I think we got the money because I really felt like we were 20 to 30% valued on what we'd already found, and I think that the investors felt that too. So they gave us the money for that reason, but they also gave us the money because they felt we had a lot of asymmetric upside on the exploration. And we have a chart in our deck where we show this triangle of nickel, copper, and PGEs, or noble metals, gold and silver. And it's sort of in that chart, it's all of the 20 orthomagmatic deposits, which is what we have. There's only been 20 in the history of the world, and they're literally the world's most profitable mines, Norilsk being the biggest. But in that chart, the interesting number is for every ton of copper sulfide you'll find 5 tons of nickel sulfide on average, ranges between 2 to 7. Right now at NISK, we've got 1.5 copper to 1 nickel, soon to be 2 copper to 1 nickel. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to find a lot more nickel too, in addition to finding more copper. And so, these things, every single one of them is a major mine, 1 million tons of contained metal. Some are super major, 10 million tons. Analysts would probably tell you we're 300,000 to 500,000 tons right now. Do we think we're going to get to 1 million? 100%. Do we think we're going to grow beyond that? It certainly looks likely. And so that combination of being undervalued and with high asymmetric exploration upside, I think is what enabled us to raise that money. And now, of course, we're putting it to work,
Okay, well, let's there's a lot of things in there to unpack. And let's kind of stick with what you're doing with what you've got bits, which is, picked up a bunch of land from Lift Power, good deal for them, good deal for you.
Yep.
But that and the money and the knowledge today is got to go towards you saying, look, we can find more of this stuff. We can deliver the scale at the grades you've been saying, extraordinary grades or extraordinary levels of contained metal, right? So, and I know you've talked to me in the past about the ANT technology. how do you prioritize all of the above? Because you know what I mean. Like the grade is one thing.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's not enough.
Thankfully, we got a really great technical team. Steve Beresford has been our thought leader and been working with Joe Campbell and the team at GeoVector to execute his concepts. And we've been able to, because we had the money to spend it right? So we did a lot of airborne EM, we did a lot of ground EM, we do borehole EM, and the borehole EM has been the most successful technology for us. So after we drill a hole, we put this machine down it, and it basically gives you within a 150 meter radius if there's other sulfide bodies. And some deposits doesn't work as well because you get a lot of false positives, but we've been lucky, we haven't had any false positives with it. So now it doesn't tell thickness, so sometimes we'll get a 2 meter section and it's like qualifies, but it's not what we're looking for. Yeah. And then next one is a 20 meter section, right? So that's what we're looking for. But so this has been an incredibly powerful technique. So that's what we're riding to the most part. Right. And then as we go deeper, it becomes more important to know the thickness. So we're looking at some additional technologies that will help us on that.
Right.
So we're really spending smartly as much as we can because drilling is expensive. We got obviously the budget to do it, but we don't want to do it willy-nilly. We want to deliver the bang for the buck, right? So
to what end though, Terry? What? Because it sounds like you're kind of like the tech guys come in and promise the earth, right? And it works to a degree, but you need to supplement that. You need to add to it. You need to again consolidate and interrogate that data. Was that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. Like and it's always like a poker hand,
right?
Right. And so you're trying to play to the strengths of your hand, and take as many cards as you need, but not any more than you need, and you want to go long when you feel like you got a strong hand. But you can always get burnt on the river. Yeah. You know what I mean? So even the best poker hand can be defeated by some guy drawing 4 aces or something like that. So
in this case, Mother Nature.
Mother Nature, because she's very difficult, but she's been very kind to us, and we thank you, Mother Nature. Thank you, God. So that's been the best friend we've had. So we've been blessed with some good fortune, no doubt. But we've worked at technologies hard, and I would say there have been very good payback for us. So it's not been perfect, and they never are, nor will they ever be, but they're definitely enhancing our odds of success, and so we're happy with that.
Right, and you've had the money to be able to do that.
We've been blessed with that because without that, it's so hard, because you got to like the little guys have to have success or they
paralyzed.
Can't get. Yeah, it's
absolutely paralyzed. Yeah, and we see so many of those stories coming through. But there's some great M&A opportunities as a result of that. So
there is.
Yeah, that's another story for later in the conversation. So with this tech, you're sort of slowly advancing things, but it's got to be to the end of you've always said to me, right? We've got to find this next pod. We've got to be able to kind of drive this revenue, and these things appear in pods. Where are we with that?
Yeah, so the first 20,000 meters or 22 or 24. Will be, when people ask me, they say, Terry, can you describe how you're successful? Well, we don't really know until we get the assays, but my gut feeling is it's not as exceptional as last fall, and it's probably better than last winter. Somewhere in between. We're going to have a mix of really great, good, and dusters because we're exploring. So I would say once we decided that strategically we needed to get more land, we changed our exploration program to not go after the land packages and the drilling opportunities that were most likely to contain the promised goods because they were too close to the source of the land that we wanted to buy. So we basically, I would say our best targets.
From poker to chess now.
Yeah, well, you have to, right? So I would say our best targets we're starting to drill now, literally rolling the rig on one of them today. So we're excited. Listen, we're happy with what we did. We had to do it anyway, but we're really pumped about what we got before us now because we've got the land packages we want, and we're going to get aggressive. And I think we're going to have some really interesting results.
Okay, so now you can get after it. Okay, so you're holding back some.
Yeah, and it's one of those things you can't really say to the market. Say, hey guys, I know we're not as good as last fall. Not that we don't have last fall opportunities. It's too close.
Right. Okay. I can understand that. That makes sense. What else are you doing with the money? Because obviously you don't want to kind of smash through that. You've explained some of the stuff you're doing, but what else?
Yeah, so the lift ground, we identified a lot of primary targets there. Yeah. So we're strategically testing each of those with a couple of holes, just so we get an understanding of the rocks there. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're basically drilling to connect Lion and NISK. They're about 5.5 kilometers apart. So we're drilling 17 400-meter holes. And basically with the borehole EM, that'll give us full read of everything from 400 meters up to the surface for that 5.5 kilometers. We believe those bodies are connected subsurface. We don't know how, but this will be a way to definitively test that. And then obviously if we, we're drilling, there's some geology to some of it, some of where we're drilling, whatever, but it's basically a spacing module. So we're going to get down there so that we know what's covering in that entire surface area. And then of course, if the borehole EM indicates, hey, you missed it, it's over here, then we'll test it. And then of course, we're hoping that we'll find the next Lion zone. And then once we found Lion, like, if you recall, when we found Lion, we put 16 holes in about 3 months and blew up. So that's sort of what we'll do.
Okay, so look, and we could get into the weeds a lot about some of the more technical stuff that you're doing, but I don't want to do that today. I want to get commercial with you. I want to understand what the setup is, okay? Because you've flown out of the gate as the best performer last year in Canadian stocks, but you kind of got to make that next step change. And doing more exploration without success is not going to do that for you, but doing exploration, making the discovery will do that for you. But there's some other stuff that I'm interested in that you're doing. I'm intrigued by. So what are those things?
Yeah, so we're going to move to New York from a listing perspective.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, Canada's coming back a little bit now, and we hope it comes back stronger. But we need to move to where the capital is, and the capital is in the United States. And so we'll be listing there. We expect sometime, in October. So that's a big move for us. We think that's important. We've been looking at Australia, and we did some active work on it. It may be part of the future. We don't know. We've got a pretty significant Australian shareholder base, and we love those guys. We spend, we're committed to going down there, a couple times a year and doing the work. So that'll be interesting, and we'll see if that is something we need to pursue. We're hoping, honestly, that New York gets us. Does the big move that gets the re-rating that should happen.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we're doing is Saudi Arabia. So we picked up a really good land package there. Looking at a couple other packages, it's interesting geology. We think it's one of the great untapped geological areas on Earth, and we got an amazing opportunity to go down there. Working with the kingdom, and they were kind enough to introduce us to the top 5 family offices there, and we're working on doing a JV with some of them on exploration, because how else can you meet those guys? These guys are, the smallest guy was 50 billion, the biggest guy was 110 billion. So it's a good chance for us to get to know and maybe work with some of these people and obviously we're working initially in Saudi, but once they understand that you do good work, you create value together. Who knows where that can lead? So in this business, as you know, capital is lifeblood. If you run out of capital, you're done. So you got to always make sure you got lots of access to capital, and that means you have to have multiple sources. Right,
and let's talk about what the makeup of that could be, because obviously wherever the capital comes from is dilutive, right? So you got to think about how the company takes capital, either at asset level or headco, pubco level. Yeah. It's also a new jurisdiction. Everyone's learning for the first time how to do mining business in Saudi Arabia. People get excited by the word Saudi Arabia because it suggests it's a land of milk and honey and lots of dollars, right? But that doesn't make your job any easier. It just means there's new things that you've got to contend with. So is that something that will sit inside the company, or will it sit outside the company? So
we created a subsidiary called polymetallic Arabia. It sits inside polymetallic.
For now. But
we would look at, we'll either do, like the one project we won, Jebel Badwan, pretty interesting VMS project, 200 square kilometers. It's close to Barrick mine. We may just do a joint venture on that specific project with one of these family offices, and go there. And we'll have brought the project in our skill set, and we'll contribute, of course, cash, but they'll contribute more cash. The final terms will come when they come, but the whole idea is to, leverage 2 things in Saudi. One, the Saudi government's got some great exploration grant programs. So if you look at that package and say it costs $4 million to do a first wave of exploration study on it, which would give you probably an 80% preview of whether or not there's something worthwhile hunting for, you'll get $2 million of that back. So that's a plus.
Okay.
And then it's like, if on the $2 million risk, who's putting up. So most of that's going to come from the other guys. So we're going to be able to do some, I would call it, very good exploration risk at very little dilutive cost to us.
Okay.
And then if we are successful, then we'll both amp it up and we'll go from there. But that's the thinking.
Okay, yeah, like I say, everyone's going to be learning on the job for a bit. But it does sound pretty darn exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I say to people say, well, why would you bother with that when you've got NISK? And I say, look, NISK is taking, here we're 4 or 5 years into NISK. This will be the next NISK. It's going to take 4 or 5 years to get there too. So it's like we can't stop, planting
This is the
seeds.
Setup. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So you got to, obviously we're 95% focused on NISK and we'll remain so, but we're, we've got that. We've got the spin out that we did. It's going to get public, probably in September, we hope, on the TSXV. Mm-hmm. That's looking good because we've got a cool silver project in it, a nice copper project. Yeah. Not a bad time to have those types of plays. Yeah. So, another opportunity for our shareholders to benefit both directly and indirectly because, when we spun it out, our shareholders in February earned, the other half of those deals. So we're always trying to, look, we're big shareholders. We're trying to create value for us as shareholders, so whatever we can do to do that, that's what we're trying to do. So
what should investors be thinking of? Obviously, the investor profile is changing. You've got the Gina Reinhardts of the world and moving to the States, that's going to access generalist capital as well. So that's fine. On the retail side, what do you think? You're clever explorers or are you corporate builders? How do you see yourself?
Well, you know what? I think we're clever.
Conventionals are where this
makes sense. Yeah. I think we're clever explorers, but we see ourselves as a lot more than just building and selling. I think there's a version of that happening where, we can't say no because the offer's so good. Because at the end of the day, we're working for shareholders. But if people what people don't really get yet at NISK is just how lucrative that project is going to be. Because when you get grades like that, the payback is probably going to be a year. So it's like, do you want to be out of that one too early? So will we build it ourselves? No, because we don't have that capacity. But could we joint venture that?
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart move. And we've got lots of people, even people here at the show that we'll be talking to about that and saying, hey, we're open to that type of consideration and certainly think that would be a good, productive move for us. So I think that's the way we see growing. We think ultimately we will become a producer, in one way, shape, or form. But first and foremost, our core strength is exploration and developing that to decision-making scenario. And so we'll be focusing on our core strength. Okay.
And are you getting the support that you need at a corporate level? It's in terms of I remember way back in the day when we met, right? This was a great exploration punt, right? And then you hit it out of the park. You've taken a lot of that weight on your own shoulders. So when you were talking about we've dashed off to Saudi Arabia, was that you?
No, it was me initially. Now we've beefed up the management team, so we've got a GM over there now who's quite capable, and then we've staffed up here, and we'll be looking to add more people to the team.
Right.
Yeah, because we've been blessed. Again, in the early stages of these deals, it's about getting enough money for the guys with the rock science to find the stuff, because nothing else matters until you find some success with a drill bit. You have to do some promotion to get the money for that drill bit. So we spend money on two things in this company: IR, and on exploration. Yeah. And I remember I was talking to 1832, and they were saying, "Hey, we like everything about you. We're looking at your IR spend, and it seems high." And I'm saying, "Yeah, it is high." I said, and I own, at that time I owned 20%, and I spent 20 cents of that. Every dollar is coming from me, and I don't want to spend one nickel on it. But if I don't, I pull up the TSXV chart, and I pulled up mine. I say, that is what happens to the guys that don't spend money. And this is what happens when you spend money and you actually have something to concretely sell people. Yeah. So it's not BS. So we spend money reluctantly on IR, but we know that that's what you have to do if you want to get the eyeballs you need in these markets. Now, maybe it's changing. Maybe we're finally going to get a good market here. God, please. Yeah. But until then, we had to go out and find the Gina Reinhardts and the Robert Friedlands and Rob McEwens and the Faradays and the Cohens, all these people, one by one, in meetings, at events like this and other events that we go to, and they sort of meet you and they say, okay, it doesn't look like he's a shyster. It looks like he's actually determined to make something work here. We're going to watch him for a while, then And then eventually they decide, oh, you know what? This guy's really trying to put the money in the ground and make something happen. Let's give him a shot. Yeah. So that's what's happened. And then when you execute, they'll say, we'll give you more shots. So that's how it works.
Yeah, it's a changing environment, changing world, definitely. And I think the money coming in as a result of metal prices, I think, is more than anything else. I think the gold guys are doing everyone a favor, quite frankly. Everyone's looking in here. But with the kind of polymetallics, is that when you're sort of speaking to these groups, they actually understand what that means.
Well, you know what's interesting? Observation Eric Sprott made for me. He said, Terry, what's the makeup of the line zone? And I said, well, we think it's going to be ultimately a third nickel, a third copper, and a third, noble metals like PGEs and gold and silver. He said, no, what's it now on the line zone? And I said, 45% copper and 55% precious metals. He says, see, that's a message that's not getting out there.
Yeah.
He says, that's why I'm intrigued with your story. So, so it's interesting that, from a PGE perspective, platinum, palladium, which is starting to turn.
It is.
And it's early days in that turn.
Yeah.
We're 40%, and we got a nice chunk of gold and a nice chunk of silver. So I think that's exciting. So we're trying to get that message out a bit more. And the other thing I think that what's interesting is, when's the last time a president's talked about mining, or a prime minister? Now they're talking about mining. So it starts at the top, and it's like, so you're now seeing the U.S. invest directly in mining. Canada's going to do the same. So I think that's also going to bring more generalist capital in. Yeah. So I think, the macro factors are as good as they've been in our time. So that's good. At the end of the day, you still got to pick the right companies and have the right sort of portfolio approach. Yeah. But because a black swan can happen to anyone. But I think I said to people last February, you should go all in on mining, because I think this is going to be a phenomenal time, and I think that's been right.
For sure, you're right. Gold's doing a lot, but it was rare earths, uranium, energy,
and silver, Jesus.
And silver's doing its own thing without government support, right?
Yeah. Totally.
But as a critical mineral component, most things are these days.
Yeah, I think copper's going to have a major run here. I don't know. It seems to me that difficulty of finding it is still there. Yeah. And like, if you think of the future is AI, and the demands of our energy that AI is going to drive are colossal. Yeah. And in order to feed that machine, everywhere you look, you're going to need a lot of copper, a lot of copper. And so copper prices are nowhere near where they're going to end up being. And I think that's going to be the next, after gold, I think copper is going to take a big run.
I hope so, Terry. I really hope so.
All right, man.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming and I know you're busy as heck out there, aren't you? Is it as busy as last year? Because that was crazy.
Even busier. Oh, wow. Last year we had 54 to 60. This year we're 60 to 60 meetings.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And your message to them is, you haven't missed the run up. That we got a ways to go, right?
Yeah, I'm saying it's probably a better deal now than it ever was, in terms of risk reward. So there you go.